Think your favorite celebrity is as sweet in real life as they seem on screen. Think again. From cruel diva behavior to shocking outbursts and downright nasty tantrums, these 35 stars have been called out for being total jerks behind the scenes. In particular, one celebrity in particular will leave you completely speechless. Here are 33 celebrities that are really big jerks you didn't know. Jared Leto. Jared Leto, a multi-talented artist, known for his haunting Joker portrayal and brilliant music career with the band 30 Seconds to Mars. However, behind the stage lights, he gained a reputation for being incredibly bizarre and inappropriate. Accusations of him sending strange items to co-stars began to emerge, astonishing many. The climax of this strangeness is that he was accused of sending sex toys and even used condoms to his co-stars during filming, a shocking and unbelievable act for anyone. Not only that, Jared Leto also publicly insulted a fan on stage simply because they didn't know the lyrics to his song, revealing a rude and disrespectful side towards the audience. Rumors of him mistreating women and even terrorizing his co-stars in Suicide Squad while playing the Joker further solidified his reputation as a star with controversial behaviors. To this day, Jared Leto maintains the image of a talented artist but is plagued by numerous scandals regarding his conduct, both on film sets and in everyday life. Christian Bale. Christian Bale was once hailed as one of the finest actors of his generation, transforming chameleon-like on screen from a dark knight to a lunatic. Yet behind that glamour lay a volatile, unpredictable personality that made many in the industry wary. His difficult-to-work-with reputation spread throughout Hollywood, with uncontrolled outbursts of rage erupting on set. The climax was the incident of his verbal abuse towards director of photography Shane Hurlbut, a shocking moment that exposed his extreme anger and the terrible, vulgar language he directed at a colleague. His screams still haunt many, painting a picture of a star out of control. Not only that, Bale also had a habit of forcing everything to go his way, and it's even rumored that this was the reason why the role of Robin never officially appeared in his famous Batman trilogy. More frighteningly, his former manager once revealed shocking information stating that Christian Bale could lecture young girls to tears when they tried to approach him. Ellen DeGeneres. For many years, Ellen DeGeneres embodied kindness, an icon of light and smiles on television, with her slogan, "Be kind to one another." She built an image as a warm, friendly host, beloved by millions. However, that glamorous facade gradually crumbled as chilling stories from behind the scenes began to be exposed. One of the most shocking accusations was that she once tried to fire a waitress simply because her fingernail was chipped, an incredibly cruel and unreasonable act. Not only that, a series of other accusations simultaneously surfaced, revealing that she mistreated employees, frequently harshly criticized jokes or small interactions, and created a toxic work environment riddled with unacceptable racial discrimination and intimidation. Consequently, Ellen's kind image in the public eye completely shattered, leading to a major career downfall and loss of trust from audiences, proving that a true personality can be far different from outward appearances. Have you ever heard shocking stories like this in your country's entertainment industry? Drop your country's name in the comments. We'd love to see where you're watching from. Toby Maguire. Toby Maguire, the web-slinging hero who captured the hearts of millions with his image as the friendly, gentle and relatable Spider-Man Peter Parker. However, behind the scenes he was described by many as a star who was not very friendly and even had incredibly baffling, disrespectful behaviors towards those around him. One of the most shocking stories is when he offered a waitress $1,000 just for her to bark like a seal, a bizarre and demeaning request. This not only stunned the server but also revealed an utterly bizarre side of the actor. A veteran casting director didn't hesitate to call him the worst little monster they had ever worked with. And on set, an unwritten rule required everyone not to make eye contact with him, indicating an extreme level of arrogance. It's no surprise that Toby Maguire was later voted the rudest autograph signer among celebrities, an unpleasant reputation completely contrary to his hero image on screen. Chevy Chase. In his peak years, Chevy Chase was a familiar face in American comedy, with roles that brought joyous laughter to audiences. However, behind that cheerful exterior lay a difficult personality, with behaviors that became a nightmare for colleagues. He once made actress Yvette Nicole Brown burst into tears on the set of Community due to his unpleasant words and attitude. The climax of his rudeness was when he directly slapped actor Rob Hubel, a self-proclaimed fan, right at a comedy performance, a completely unacceptable act of violence from an artist. This incident was not only shocking but also exposed his arrogance and domineering behavior. Horrendous arguments with co-stars and directors became Chevy Chase's trademark, leading him to be openly despised by his Saturday Night Live colleagues. It seemed that fame had transformed him into someone who lacked respect for everyone around him, from fans to those he worked with. Tommy Lee Jones. Tommy Lee Jones, a veteran actor with a calm demeanor and powerful eyes on screen, has left his mark in countless classic works. Yet behind that stern facade lies a surly and unapproachable personality that made many wary when interacting with him. His reputation for being unpleasant spread widely, with unexpected outbursts of anger. The climax of this prickliness was when he bluntly declared to Jim Carrey on the set of Batman Forever, "I hate you, I really don't like you," a cold and cruel remark that caused the atmosphere to become intensely tense. Not stopping there, Tommy Lee Jones also displayed a clear lack of cooperation with the press, frequently cutting interviews short rudely and refusing to sign autographs for fans, as if interaction was a burden. This further solidified his image as a demanding star, a true ogre of Hollywood, who only wanted to finish his work and avoid all the annoyances of fame. Terrence Howard. Terrence Howard, the actor who made a strong impression with his role in Iron Man, had a considerable career. However, his reputation was overshadowed by a serious and prolonged history of domestic violence. Chilling stories of his behavior with his ex-wife shocked the public, including assaulting her in 2001 and again in 2005, showing an alarming pattern of violent behavior. He was specifically accused of threatening to kill his ex-wife in 2010, a criminal threat that exposed a dark and dangerous side of his personality. Not only limited to family matters, Terrence Howard also displayed rude and unpleasant behavior at work, leaving many colleagues and crew members dismayed. These actions destroyed his public image, causing his career to face many difficulties and losing audience support, proving that talent cannot conceal serious moral and behavioral flaws. Julia Roberts. With her radiant smile and dazzling beauty, Julia Roberts was once America's sweetheart, the undeniable queen of Hollywood's silver screen. Yet behind that captivating exterior, a sarcastic nickname was given to her by the Peter Pan film crew, Tinker Hell, referring to her bad emotional states and demanding temperament. Even the legendary director Steven Spielberg once stated bluntly that he would never work with her again, a rare refusal for a star of Julia Roberts' caliber. Despite being an icon, she gained a reputation for being arrogant, always wanting to be the center of attention, and difficult to get along with anyone, making all work on set tense. These stories shaped a part of Julia Roberts' reputation, proving that even the most beloved stars have unacceptable aspects in their personality. Russell Crowe. Russell Crowe, the Oscar-winning actor with a rugged appearance and powerful acting, is often dubbed the king of ego in Hollywood. While his talent is undeniable, his hot temper and arrogance are what leave many shaking their heads. He had a habit of publicly bad-mouthing other stars, creating unnecessary feuds in showbiz. The climax of his uncontrolled behavior was when Russell Crowe was accused of threatening to kill a producer simply because he felt his assistant was underpaid, a violent and terrifying act that crossed ethical boundaries. Not only that, he didn't hesitate to call George Clooney a Frank Sinatra impersonator, showing contempt and an ego beyond control. His arguments and conflicts with colleagues in the media became legendary, further solidifying his image as an unapproachable star, always ready to erupt. This king of arrogance reputation has been associated with Russell Crowe, showing a completely different person from the heroic characters he plays on screen. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen was once one of Hollywood's highest-paid stars, with a brilliant film and television career beloved by millions worldwide. However, his personal life was a long chain of scandals and arrogant, uncontrolled behavior. He once publicly called superstar Rihanna the most vulgar terms, simply due to a small misunderstanding, exposing an extreme lack of respect for a colleague. Not only that, Charlie Sheen is also known for his history of heavy drug and alcohol abuse, destroying his career and personal life. More seriously, he also had a history of abusing partners, with violence allegations that completely shattered his image. Despite being the son of a legendary actor and possessing acknowledged talent, Charlie Sheen chose a path of self-destruction, turning himself into a symbol of depravity and lack of control, leading the public to no longer view him with admiration, but instead with disappointment and pity. Sandra Bullock. Sandra Bullock, with her friendly beauty and relatable roles, was once dubbed America's sweetheart in Hollywood, a star beloved for her simplicity and grace. However, one story revealed a completely different side, shattering that beautiful image. According to some online accounts, she was accused of rudely refusing and even insulting a disabled man when he simply wanted an autograph. This moment revealed an unexpected lack of empathy and compassion from someone lauded by the public. That behavior made many wonder if she was truly as kind-hearted as she appeared. Not only that, she was also said to have tried to control her former partner, Jesse James, making him feel inferior and less than in the relationship. Her arrogance and disrespectful attitude towards fans, especially vulnerable ones, seriously damaged Sandra Bullock's reputation, transforming her from a beloved star into a controversial name, proving that a celebrity's conduct can have long-lasting consequences. Johnny Depp. Johnny Depp was once one of Hollywood's most charming and sought-after actors, an icon of freedom and individuality. However, in recent years, that image has been shattered by a series of scandals and accusations of violent, uncontrolled behavior. He gained a reputation for being a behind-the-scenes troublemaker, with intense arguments on set. The climax of this erratic behavior was when Johnny Depp was accused of completely destroying a hotel room, then blaming it on an armadillo, a bizarre and utterly illogical excuse demonstrating his irresponsibility and lack of control. Not only that, he was also sued during the production of City of Lies and accused by his former managers of not learning his lines, severely affecting the work progress of the entire crew. These behaviors tarnished Johnny Depp's reputation, transforming an admired star into a name associated with controversy and career decline, clearly demonstrating how personality can destroy even talent. Should we still support celebrities who act like massive jerks off camera? Comment yes or no below and add a quick reason if you dare. Ben Stiller. Ben Stiller is one of Hollywood's most beloved comedic actors. Yet behind that humorous exterior lies an extreme and difficult-to-please personality with unbelievably petty demands. One of the most shocking stories is when he flew into a rage in a restaurant simply because his Diet Coke didn't have 2 identical ice cubes. An unreasonable and utterly unacceptable tantrum from an adult. This behavior exposed an impatient side and an obsessive demand for perfection from the actor. Not only that, Ben Stiller was also accused of making his personal assistant stand in his parking spot to ensure no one else took it, showing selfishness and entitlement. These stories shaped his demanding reputation, creating a surprising contrast between his humorous, friendly on-screen image and his true self, full of demands and unwarranted anger. Shia LaBeouf. Shia LaBeouf, a talented young actor, once expected to become a big star in Hollywood, with impressive roles since childhood. However, his career journey was overshadowed by a series of scandals and strange, rude behaviors. The worst behavior was when he was exposed for plagiarizing an entire script, a serious violation of professional ethics that shattered all trust in his creativity. Not only that, Shia LaBeouf was also accused by a fan of trying to look down her younger sister's shirt, a disrespectful and cunning act. He is also known for always demanding special treatment, making everyone around him uncomfortable. These stories created an infamous reputation for Shia LaBeouf, causing his career to fluctuate endlessly, proving that talent needs to be accompanied by ethics and respect for others. Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis, an icon of action films deeply ingrained in the minds of global audiences. Yet behind that tough exterior lay an unpleasant and easily angered personality, especially when he was recognized by fans in public. Most notably, he was accused of severely scolding 2 boys, only 10 years old, in an Atlanta restaurant. The reason was ridiculous. They laughed and pointed at him, an innocent act by children. Instead of ignoring them or offering a friendly smile, Willis chose to shout, frightening the two children. This behavior showed his impatience and discomfort when bothered. Bruce Willis, a hero on screen, became a frightening man in the eyes of innocent children, a painful truth about the gap between his image and his true self. Joan Crawford. Joan Crawford, one of the legendary actresses of Hollywood's golden age, is known not only for her talent, but also as a notorious diva, full of demands and power. However, behind that glamour were a series of shocking stories about her personality and behavior. The horrifying accusations of terrible abuse that her adopted daughter Christina wrote in the memoir Mommy Dearest exposed a cruel and pathological side of the star mother. Not only within the family, Crawford also had a fierce feud with colleague Bette Davis, once putting weights in her pockets for Davis to drag her in a scene and lobbying against Davis for an Oscar, showing extreme jealousy and manipulation. Additionally, she had such a massive ego, refusing to share dressing rooms and deliberately arriving late to scenes to draw attention. These behaviors further solidified the image of a tyrannical, unpleasant star, casting a shadow of personal scandals over Joan Crawford's reputation. Jennifer Lopez. Jennifer Lopez, or J-Lo, is a global icon of music and fashion, with a brilliant career that has inspired millions. Yet behind that perfect exterior lie chilling stories of her diva behavior and rude attitude towards staff and servers. Most shockingly, J-Lo was accused of spitting chewing gum into her assistant's hand, an unhygienic and utterly disrespectful act that exposed a disappointing side of this star. Not stopping there, she is also famous for her unreasonably bizarre demands, such as requiring everything in her room to be decorated entirely in white, or having someone walk backward in front of her to maintain distance. She was also accused of firing employees for trivial and absurd reasons, showing her authoritarian and unforgiving nature. These behaviors created a bad reputation for Jennifer Lopez within the industry, making many hesitant to work with her and significantly affecting her beautiful image in the public eye. Sean Penn. Sean Penn is always highly regarded by critics for his talent. However, his life is overshadowed by a history of volatile temper and alarming violent behavior, especially towards paparazzi and fans. He was recorded snatching a fan's phone and throwing it to the ground just for being photographed, an uncontrolled and utterly unacceptable act from a celebrity. This act not only demonstrated rudeness, but also signaled aggression. Not stopping there, Sean Penn also had a long history of disturbing paparazzi and was arrested multiple times for violent acts, from assault to brawling. These incidents tarnished his image, leading him to be considered an unapproachable and dangerous star no matter how great his talent. It couldn't hide his serious flaws in personality and self-emotional control. Mike Myers. Mike Myers, the legendary comedic star with iconic roles like Austin Powers and the classic voice of Shrek, brought countless laughs to audiences worldwide. Yet behind those lovable characters was a star notoriously difficult to work with. He was considered an extreme perfectionist with unreasonable demands on set, leading co-stars to call the filming process horrific, a nightmare, a haunting remark that illustrates the extreme tension on set. Myers also had a personal assistant solely to bring him chocolate, a bizarre and extravagant demand demonstrating his privilege. He rarely interacted with anyone outside his close circle, creating an invisible barrier between him and the film crew. This demanding and aloof nature created a difficult-to-work-with reputation for Mike Myers, making many in the industry think carefully before collaborating with him, proving that fame sometimes comes with unpleasant behaviors. Cher, the ageless music icon with a strong personality and unique style, has dominated entertainment for decades. She is known for her bluntness and fearlessness in expressing opinions, but sometimes that bluntness turns into unacceptable rudeness. Cher frequently used vulgar language publicly on social media, exposing a global star's lack of linguistic restraint. Not only that, she also had persistent feuds with many other celebrities, not hesitating to attack them with harsh words. Cher once called Madonna a spoiled brat and David Letterman an asshole, even sarcastically referring to Donald Trump as a complete idiot. These harsh, disrespectful remarks showed her recklessness and contempt. Cher also made vulgar remarks in interviews and mocked artists who impersonated her, a disrespectful behavior towards colleagues. Although a legend, her bluntness to the point of rudeness made Cher a highly controversial star. A great artist, but with words that hurt others. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, the chairman of the board of 20th Century Entertainment, with a captivating voice and charming performing style, became an immortal legend. However, he was accused of sending a vulgar funeral wreath to a magazine editor, a disgusting and threatening act that exposed the singer's deep hatred. Not only that, Frank Sinatra was also famous for his close ties to the mafia, drunken brawls, and fierce feuds with colleagues, politicians, and journalists. His immense ego and recklessness frequently led him to pick fights, causing much turmoil in showbiz. No matter how great his talent, Frank Sinatra's reputation remained shrouded in the shadow of personal scandals, transforming him into a figure both admired and wary of, proving that power can come with corruption. Kanye West. Kanye West, a talented rapper and music producer with wide-ranging influence on popular culture, is always the center of attention. However, he is also known for controversial statements and erratic behavior, frequently shocking the public. At the 2009 MTV VMAs, he publicly interrupted Taylor Swift's acceptance speech, an extremely disrespectful and arrogant act that exposed his disregard for rules. Not only that, Kanye West also sparked global outrage by stating that slavery was a choice, a false and insulting remark about human history. He frequently cursed at hosts and derailed interviews, showing his immense ego and recklessness. These behaviors made Kanye West's reputation highly controversial, even leading many to call for his boycott, transforming him from an admired artist into a name associated with arrogance and thoughtlessness. Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber, from a pop prince child prodigy adored by millions of fans, underwent a scandalous transformation marked by rude and shocking behaviors. He changed from a sweet boy to a troublesome bad boy. The climax, also the most shocking moments, was when he publicly yelled at fans during a concert, showing disrespect for the very people who brought him to fame. Not only that, Justin Bieber was also accused of spitting on fans gathered below his hotel balcony, a disgusting and contemptuous act. He was also arrested for drunk driving, exposing his irresponsibility and disregard for the law. Furthermore, he frequently refused to sign autographs and publicly cursed at fans, turning their affection into disappointment. These actions completely destroyed Justin Bieber's innocent image, turning him into a scandalous, uncontrolled, and disappointing star in the public eye, showing how early fame can lead to moral decay and lack of self-control. Jennifer Lawrence. Jennifer Lawrence, the actress who played Katniss Everdeen, is known for her explosive acting talent and candid personality, beloved for her authenticity and humor. However, sometimes that authenticity crosses the line and turns into rude behavior, especially towards fans. The most controversial climax is when she was accused of being unfriendly towards audiences, although Jennifer Lawrence always claimed it was just her way of protecting her private space. Whatever the reason, stories of her impatience and irritability when facing crowds have disappointed a segment of fans. They expected a warmer interaction from the star they admired, but instead received coldness or even an indifferent attitude. These incidents created a two-sided image for Jennifer Lawrence in the public eye, both a talented star and someone who could suddenly become unpleasant, making many question her true friendliness in real life. Jonah Hill. Jonah Hill, the comedic actor with a likable appearance and natural ability to make people laugh, was once beloved by the public for his witty, friendly roles on screen. Yet behind that humorous exterior lay an arrogant, even jerky personality, according to those who worked with him. A shocking moment was when Jonah Hill appeared extremely uncomfortable and angry simply because a reporter mistook his name for Seth, an exaggerated and unprofessional reaction that exposed the actor's hypersensitivity about his ego. He doesn't like being joked with, especially jokes that might belittle him, and always wants to be treated seriously, even though he is a comedian. This arrogance and demanding nature caused him to lose points in the eyes of many, creating a surprising contrast between the image he projects in films and his true self in real life. These stories further solidified Jonah Hill's reputation as an unpleasant, unfriendly star, contrary to the appearance he often presents. Gwyneth Paltrow. Gwyneth Paltrow, the Oscar-winning actress, built a lifestyle empire with her Goop brand, shaping the image of a perfect, sophisticated woman. However, she also faced harsh criticism for her overly luxurious lifestyle and strange health claims. One of the harshest criticisms was when Gwyneth Paltrow was called a wealthy white woman with an eating disorder turned into a brand promotional opportunity, a blunt assessment of her exploitation of personal image and lack of realism. She was also accused of insulting a chef in London, showing disrespect towards those who served her. Additionally, Gwyneth Paltrow was said to live detached from society, preferring to order hotel room service rather than dining at restaurants, exposing an arrogance and detachment from the normal world. These behaviors created an image of Gwyneth Paltrow as both luxurious and distant and controversial, making the public question the authenticity of this lifestyle icon. Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise, one of Hollywood's most powerful and successful actors with a brilliant career spanning decades, has always been a symbol of professionalism and irresistible charm. However, behind the big screen lies a mysterious personal life and strange rules that make many question his normalcy. Tom Cruise was criticized for imposing unreasonable and harsh rules on his ex-wife, Katie Holmes, after their divorce, including her not being allowed to travel with their daughter, not meeting other men, and even being forbidden from seeing Nicole Kidman, Tom's own ex-wife. These conditions revealed excessive control and a domineering side of the actor. He was also said to take Scientology, a highly controversial religion, too seriously, causing his life to become increasingly isolated from the outside world. These stories made Tom Cruise's reputation peculiar, intensely scrutinized, and even shunned by some, proving that personal beliefs can deeply affect relationships and public image. Enjoying this video? Like and subscribe for more. Not feeling it? A like would still be appreciated, and your comments will help me do better next time. Cameron Diaz. Cameron Diaz, with her radiant beauty and charming smile, was once one of Hollywood's most beloved comedic actresses. Yet behind that friendly facade, she earned a reputation as one of the most unapproachable celebrities, disappointing many fans. Cameron Diaz didn't hesitate to lecture fans about the foolishness of asking for autographs, an act that disrespected and shattered the trust of those who admired her. She was also described as unsociable, frequently ignoring everyone at social gatherings, focusing only on her close circle. This exposed a coldness and arrogance, completely contrary to the cheerful image she projected on screen. Those behaviors created an unpleasant reputation for Cameron Diaz, making her a mysterious and distant star, not very friendly in real life, proving that a public image does not always reflect a star's true self. Zooey Deschanel. Zooey Deschanel was once a muse for many indie films and beloved for her role in New Girl. However, behind that cuteness lay a completely different personality, as her co-stars didn't hesitate to call her unpleasant, grumpy, and not fun. Her reputation for being difficult to please spread throughout the entertainment industry. Zooey Deschanel was accused of tending to control the entire film set and treating those around her poorly whenever the schedule didn't go her way, demonstrating her authoritarianism and disrespect towards colleagues. A veteran producer even described her as a terrible boss, a haunting remark that highlighted the difficulty of working with her. These behaviors created a less than favorable reputation for Zooey Deschanel, turning her from a muse into a demanding princess, leaving many in the industry dismayed, proving that outward appearances do not always reflect one's true inner self. Rachael Ray. Rachael Ray became a famous chef beloved by millions of viewers. Yet behind the cameras, she was described as a completely different person, cold and unpleasant, surprising many. An audience member once claimed that Rachael Ray greeted the crowd with an annoyed eye roll and continuous complaints, completely contrary to the enthusiasm she displayed on screen. This behavior exposed an unprofessional and unfriendly side of the celebrity chef. While on television, she always exuded cheerfulness and approachability. In real life, Rachael Ray had a reputation for being distant and uninterested in interacting with those around her. These stories created a two-sided image for Rachael Ray, leading her to be seen as someone who is only friendly when the camera is on, proving that a public image can be far from the true person behind the spotlight. Robert Pattinson. Robert Pattinson, with his role as the vampire Edward Cullen in Twilight, became an idol for millions of teen fans worldwide, adored and sought after everywhere. However, instead of cherishing that support, he made remarks and behaved in ways that deeply hurt many fans. Robert Pattinson made derogatory comments about Twihards fans, claiming they only sat online writing about the movie, a disrespectful remark that dismissed the audience's affection. He also admitted to sometimes intentionally distancing himself from fans to maintain his privacy, a cold and unapproachable attitude. Although the pressure of fame is immense, his treatment of those who brought him to the top sparked controversy. These behaviors created an unapproachable reputation for Robert Pattinson, leading him to be seen as a star who doesn't quite appreciate his fans' affection, proving that not every idol can handle the pressures of fame well and maintain a positive relationship with their audience. David Beckham. David Beckham, the global football icon and fashion trailblazer, became the envy of millions not just for his skills on the pitch, but for his perfectly styled hair. But as time caught up, Beckham too began to show visible signs of thinning hair, particularly along the crown and temples. Then, almost overnight, his hair reappeared, thick, full, suspiciously flawless. This dramatic transformation raised more than just eyebrows. Rumors erupted that he had undergone a hair transplant. Under certain angles and lighting, Beckham's hairline looked too straight, too uniform, and oddly dense for a man in his late 40s. Experts pointed out inconsistencies, the abrupt changes in density, the lack of natural gradient, and the telltale signs of follicular placement gone awry. What was once the golden boy's crown turned into a clinical case of cosmetic suspicion. Even the most beautiful faces in the world aren't immune to the subtle scars of artificial perfection. Sammy Davis Jr. Sammy Davis Jr., a legendary member of the Rat Pack, had another tragically ironic hair transplant story. Ironically, his natural baldness perfectly suited his unique performing style and powerful personality. Yet in the relentless pursuit of a perfect appearance, he decided to undergo hair transplantation in the late 1960s. The result was an unbelievable disaster. The new hair created a hairline so unnaturally perfect it looked like a wig made from his own hair, stiff and completely devoid of natural softness. Whenever he performed under the harsh spotlights of nightclubs, the implanted patches of hair were glaringly obvious, creating a disjointed and bizarre appearance. The dazzling lights, instead of honoring his talent, exposed the painful truth of his failed attempt to improve his appearance. It was like an invisible scar, always present and throbbing whenever he stepped onto the stage, reminding him of a decision that went against his own unique beauty. William Shatner. William Shatner, the legendary Captain Kirk of the Star Trek universe, was also an infamous victim of early hair transplant technology. His quest for a thick head of hair began in the late 1960s and spanned decades, becoming endless fodder for fan jokes and speculation. His new hair had an unnaturally dense quality, looking more like a brush than human hair, incredibly stiff and artificial. This condition turned his hair into a persistent joke throughout his career, as it seemed to defy all laws of natural aging. Despite his advancing age, his hair remained abnormally thick and jet black, creating a bizarre contrast with his increasingly aging face. This stands as a clear testament to how, when humans try to combat nature with imperfect technology, the result can become a permanent mockery, forever linked to their name and image. Frank Sinatra. Frank Sinatra, one of the greatest voices of all time and the chairman of the board of entertainment, was also one of the brave pioneers to experiment with hair transplantation as early as the 1960s. At that time, hair transplant technology was incredibly crude, often referred to as punch graft or plug transplants, which involved cutting round patches of scalp containing hair from the back of the head and implanting them into the bald forehead area. For Sinatra, the result of this surgery transformed his hair into something bizarre and utterly unnatural, resembling a plastic doll's hair with its perfectly round, conspicuously implanted hair plugs directly on his scalp, lacking any aesthetic appeal. This disaster became particularly embarrassing during a live television show in 1965, when the hot studio lights made him sweat profusely. His carefully styled hair, once considered perfect for concealing flaws, suddenly peeled apart in sections, clearly exposing the horrific plug hair transplant pattern beneath, leaving millions of viewers stunned. This was not merely a personal moment of awkwardness, but also a painful testament to the failure of early hair transplant technology, turning a legend into a victim of his own attempts to hide the ravages of age. Burt Reynolds. Burt Reynolds, a symbol of Hollywood masculinity, though famous in the post-Golden Age era, could not escape a tragic fate concerning his hair. As early as the beginning of the 1970s, he began his hair transplant journey to combat impending baldness. However, instead of delivering a natural look, the surgery created a stiff, pencil-drawn hairline, so artificial that audiences could easily discern he was wearing a wig. What was worse, consecutive corrective surgeries seemingly intended to fix the initial mistake only exacerbated the problem. Each surgical intervention added permanent scars to his scalp and further destroyed remaining hair follicles, turning his hair into a sparse, deformed mess. This was not just a tragedy of appearance, but also a haunting reminder of Hollywood's obsession with looks, forcing a charismatic man like Reynolds to struggle with incessant surgeries, ultimately leaving behind painful scars and deep regret. Before we dive in, let us know where are you watching from. Drop your country in the comments below. Thanks for your support. Mel Gibson. Mel Gibson, though his fame arrived after the Golden Age, was still a victim of the same dreadful hair transplant techniques that haunted previous stars. His attempt to improve his thinning hair resulted in an unnaturally straight and excessively dense hairline for his age, creating a distinctly artificial appearance. Fans and experts relentlessly criticized this hair, likening it to a wildfire pattern, areas of extremely dense hair interspersed with completely bald patches, forming a confusing and disjointed mess. Gibson's hair became a prime example of how aesthetic technology, no matter how advanced, if lacking subtlety and artistic vision, can still produce counterproductive results, transforming beauty into a scar on the soul. Every public appearance saw his hair become a topic of discussion, overshadowing his acting talent and achievements. Matthew McConaughey. Matthew McConaughey, with his charming and masculine appearance, once astonished many when he reappeared with thick, healthy hair after suffering severe frontal baldness in the late 90s. This miraculous revival sparked a major mystery in Hollywood circles. Although he adamantly denied undergoing a hair transplant, claiming it was entirely a natural change, most aesthetic experts and fans remained skeptical of the transformation's naturalness. McConaughey's hair became a testament to defiance against time, but also a reminder of the relentless pressure to maintain a perfect appearance in the film industry, where even positive changes in looks can become a well-hidden secret and the subject of endless speculation. John Travolta. John Travolta, the disco icon of the 70s and 80s, also embarked on a turbulent hair transplant journey starting in the 1980s. His initial procedures left him with a hairline that looked like it was drawn with a felt-tip pen, so perfectly symmetrical and flawless that it completely lost its natural appeal. It resembled an awkwardly sketched painting on a star's face. As his career experienced a powerful resurgence in the 1990s, coupled with the advent of high-definition cameras and advanced lighting technology, the unnatural details of his transplanted hair became clearer than ever before. This led to relentless gossip and ridicule across media outlets, transforming his hair into an icon of failed aesthetic intervention. Elton John. Elton John, the rocket man of the music world, also suffered a heartbreaking hair transplant disaster in the 1970s. These initial attempts not only failed to improve his baldness, but made his hair sparse, uneven, and look even worse than before the intervention. The punch graft technique of that era created clear circular patches of hair conspicuously implanted into his scalp, no different from carelessly sown seeds. After numerous failures and enduring scrutinizing eyes, he eventually had to abandon the idea of permanent hair transplantation. Instead, Elton John embraced elaborate wigs, transforming them into an indispensable, iconic part of his unique performance style. This decision was not merely an acceptance of reality, but also a powerful act, turning failure into a personal signature, proving that creativity can triumph over physical flaws. Tony Curtis. Tony Curtis, one of the most charming actors of the Golden Age, underwent one of the most extensive series of hair transplant surgeries in Hollywood history, beginning in the 1960s. His desperate attempt to maintain a glamorous appearance led to a haunting result. His post-surgery hair had a cornrow-like pattern on his scalp, resembling agricultural planting more than human hair, with straight, distinct rows and patches lacking any softness and naturalness. What was particularly ironic was that as he aged, his transplanted hair remained unnaturally thick and jet black, while his remaining natural hair gradually turned grey. This created a strikingly obvious and artificial two-tone effect, making his hair a bizarre statement of surgical intervention. Sean Connery, the legendary James Bond, was severely bald from an early age and had to wear wigs in most of his blockbuster films during his youth. However, his initial attempts at hair transplantation also ended in dismal failure. These procedures left him with patchy hair that looked completely unnatural, disjointed, and puzzling. Fortunately, Connery was one of the few stars who eventually accepted the truth about his hair. As he aged, he completely abandoned wigs and openly embraced his distinctive bald head. This decision transformed him into an icon of confidence and natural grace, proving that true beauty lies in self-acceptance. Connery's journey is a powerful reminder that fighting against nature is not always the right path. Sometimes the most authentic beauty comes from simplicity and the courage to accept what one has. Marlon Brando. Marlon Brando, the legendary godfather of cinema, was also a silent victim of a hair transplant disaster, a secret kept for decades. The procedures he underwent in the 1970s were so dreadful that he was compelled to wear wigs for most of his later career to conceal the horrific result. His transplanted hair had an artificial hairline, too low and straight, looking no different than grass growing through concrete. Stiff, lifeless, and utterly out of place on his face. Brando was so ashamed of this outcome that he refused to be photographed without a hat or wig for the rest of his life. This was a festering pain, a self-consciousness that haunted one of the greatest actors of all time, transforming a genius into someone living in the shadow. Steve Carell. Steve Carell, the beloved comedian, also underwent a noticeable hair transformation during the hit series The Office. In the first season, viewers could easily spot his thinning hair around the forehead. However, from the second season onwards, Steve's hair suddenly became surprisingly thicker and shinier. Although this change made him appear younger, the result wasn't truly balanced. Lingering questions remain about whether he underwent a hair transplant, as the transformation was too rapid and pronounced. Steve Carell's hair became a testament to the fact that even actors beloved for their talent cannot escape the pressure concerning appearance in the entertainment industry, where beauty and youth seem paramount to a career. Wayne Rooney. Wayne Rooney, one of the world's most famous football players, is among the few who candidly admitted to having a hair transplant. Initially, the results were quite promising, providing him with a thick and more confident head of hair on the field. However, this joy did not last long. Just a few years later, Rooney's hair began to thin again at an alarming rate, raising doubts about the long-term success of this hair transplant. His story serves as a stark warning that not all hair transplants deliver the desired permanent results, and even for those who openly undergo the procedure, the outcome can still be unpredictable and unsustainable over time. This failure affected not only his appearance but also public confidence in the efficacy of aesthetic procedures. Jason Alexander. Jason Alexander, the actor familiar for his role as George Costanza in Seinfeld, caused a major surprise when he appeared with transplanted hair in the early 2000s. This was a sudden and stark change from the bald image that audiences had grown accustomed to. However, what was even more surprising was that, after a period, he decided to abandon maintaining this transplanted hair and return to his familiar bald appearance. Jason's story is a rare example of self-acceptance. He tried, he experienced, but ultimately realized that trying to fight against nature was not necessary. This decision not only demonstrated courage, but also conveyed a powerful message about cherishing natural beauty and finding comfort in being oneself, rising above societal pressures about appearance. Billy Bob Thornton. Billy Bob Thornton, the distinctive actor, once faced severe hair loss due to lupus, an autoimmune disease. His hair became thin, brittle, and weak, making his appearance even more haggard. During that difficult period, he even had to resort to wearing wigs to conceal the flaw. However, instead of attempting hair transplants or finding every possible way to completely hide it, Billy Bob Thornton chose a neat, unfussy style, making no effort to disguise his hair loss. This approach demonstrated his strength and acceptance of reality. Billy Bob Thornton's story is a reminder of the challenges stars face, not only due to age, but also illness, and how their chosen way of confronting physical changes can become a symbol of resilience. Kevin Costner. Kevin Costner, a charismatic Hollywood leading man, began balding quite early. However, what surprised audiences was that in his later years, he unexpectedly appeared with a surprisingly thick and vibrant head of hair. Insiders endlessly speculated that he had secretly undergone hair transplantation to maintain his masculine and dashing image on screen. This change, though not publicly admitted, still highlights the relentless pressure that stars endure to preserve a youthful appearance in the film industry. A.J. McClain. A.J. McClain, the edgy voice of the Backstreet Boys, brought the boy band era to life with his bold personality and rebellious style. Yet behind the tattoos and dark eyeliner hid a quiet insecurity: his hair. Over the years, A.J. began to lose significant density along his frontal hairline and crown, a change fans noted during reunion tours. Eventually, he chose to undergo a hair transplant, hoping to reclaim the youthful image of his prime. However, the result was deeply unsettling. His hair grew back in inconsistent patches, unnaturally thick in the front and thin in the rear, creating a jarring visual imbalance. Experts noted the lack of gradient density and poor follicular placement, comparing it to a crooked helmet of hair. The aesthetic failure was magnified by stage lighting and high-definition cameras, turning what was meant to be a revival into a quiet embarrassment, a J quote. S-transplant became a cautionary tale of how even the most confident performers can fall victim to the industry's silent demand for eternal youth. Elon Musk. Elon Musk, though not a traditional Hollywood star, has also had his hair become a subject of considerable controversy and curiosity. Once openly sporting a severe bald patch on the crown of his head in the 90s, Elon's return with a thick, full head of hair astonished many and raised questions about a mysterious hair transplant. However, this new hair did not entirely deliver the natural look he might have hoped for. His hairline is often criticized for being stiff, lacking softness, and unbalanced, creating an artificial impression. It has become a prime example of a controversial hair transplant, where the change was so significant and sudden that it became difficult for people to believe in its naturalness. Jeremy Piven. Jeremy Piven, the talented actor who was visibly balding, caused a stir when he reappeared with strikingly thick hair. This transformation quickly became a subject of discussion because his new hair completely lacked a natural feel. Aesthetic experts frankly assessed Jeremy's case as unnatural, specifically pointing out the uneven hair density and an erect hairline, creating a rigid and artificial appearance. Although he attempted to conceal the signs of age and aging, these efforts unintentionally exposed the clear evidence of surgical intervention. Jeremy Piven's story serves as a stark warning that sometimes trying to change too much from one's natural appearance can only make one less appealing in the eyes of the public. Joey Fatone. Joey Fatone, the affable heart of NSYNC, always carried an everyman charm that set him apart from his slicker bandmates. As age crept in, his once full hairline began its gradual retreat, a fact he accepted with grace until the cameras zoomed in. Opting for a hair transplant in an effort to revitalize his look, Fatone's transformation was meant to be subtle, but the result was anything but. His new hairline emerged like an abrupt black arc across his forehead, so thick and blocky it looked digitally drawn. Worse yet, the surrounding hair failed to match in density or tone, producing what stylists called the mosaic scalp effect, where transplanted follicles clustered unnaturally over weaker zones. While Joey maintained his infectious smile, public appearances often centered less on his projects and more on his puzzling hair. What should have been a quiet aesthetic enhancement became a focal point of distraction, proving that even modest fame cannot shield one from cosmetic scrutiny gone wrong. Salman Khan. Salman Khan, the muscular megastar of Bollywood with international crossover appeal, built his career on a foundation of fearless characters and unapologetic masculinity. Yet behind his on-screen bravado lay a deeply private battle with his hair. By the early 2000s, Salman's receding hairline was becoming painfully obvious in films and public appearances. Determined to reverse the clock, he underwent a series of hair transplant procedures, but the first two ended in disaster. Infections, scarring, and poorly distributed grafts plagued his scalp, prompting an emergency intervention in Dubai. Doctors there had to repair significant damage done by earlier botched surgeries, working around the permanent scars etched across his scalp. Though later procedures yielded better cosmetic results, Salman's public image never fully recovered. He now maintains a tightly cropped haircut that conceals the trauma beneath. His case is more than a story of vanity. It's a stark reminder of the physical toll and emotional damage failed aesthetic procedures can inflict, even on the most revered stars. Where did the disaster originate? Those hairs became a haunting obsession, not due to the star's fault, but because of a grim truth: the beauty technology itself. In the glamorous 60s and 70s, hair transplant techniques were brutally and unbelievably primitive. The most common method, also known as punch grafting or plug transplantation, simply involved cutting circular pieces of scalp about 4 millimeters in size from the back of the head. These hair patches were then implanted directly into bald areas as if one were patching a torn piece of fabric. The outcome of this method was a horrific array of issues. Firstly, these grafts were too large and contained too many hair follicles, creating a grotesque appearance, resembling a plastic doll's hair attached to a real person's head. Furthermore, the perfectly round shape of the implants completely flouted natural laws, as real hair never grows in perfect circles. Worse still, this technique entirely ignored the natural direction and angle of hair growth, causing the implanted hairs to grow erratically and unruly, without any order. This punch graft method also left dreadful scars on both the donor and recipient areas of the scalp. The perfectly round scars at the back of the neck looked no different from misplaced polka dots, while the implanted areas featured raised, lumpy, and mangled scars almost impossible to conceal. Surgeons of that era were often not specialists in hair restoration. They had no understanding of the artistic aspect required to create a natural and harmonious hairline. They viewed hair transplantation as just another ordinary surgery, focusing solely on the technical execution while completely disregarding the haunting aesthetic results. Gordon Ramsay. Gordon Ramsay, the notoriously fiery celebrity chef, found himself at the center of a very different kind of kitchen disaster, one involving scalpels and swollen regret. In an attempt to restore his thinning crown, Ramsay underwent a hair transplant that went south almost instantly. Paparazzi captured him just days after the procedure, face puffed beyond recognition, forehead alarmingly red and blistered, with a wool beanie awkwardly stretched across his inflamed scalp. The tabloids erupted. What happened to Gordon Ramsay's face? And the world recoiled. What was meant to be a quiet cosmetic upgrade turned into a visual nightmare, exposing the raw surgical reality of hair transplants. The hot kitchen lights no longer seemed as harsh as the flashbulbs that now illuminated every surgical misstep on his face. While his hair eventually grew in with some success, the trauma of those viral images lingered. Ramsay's ordeal serves as a brutal warning. No matter how tough you are, even the smallest vanity can explode into a public catastrophe. Because YouTube will prioritize interactive videos. Please comment "OK" if you find this video interesting. Thank you. Charlie Sheen. Charlie Sheen, the actor who has led a turbulent life, is a prime example of the consequences of dye and chemical abuse, as well as prolonged stress, on hair. He once suffered from severe seborrheic dermatitis and significant hair loss, with his scalp red, itchy and flaking, looking utterly pathetic. This was not merely an aesthetic issue, but also a clear symptom of his mental and physical decline. Charlie Sheen's hair became an indictment of a reckless lifestyle and the unfathomable pressures of Hollywood. His story is a chilling warning about how personal choices and a harsh environment can ravage a star's appearance and health, transforming them from a glamorous icon into a pitiable figure, a living tragedy before the public's eyes. Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks, one of Hollywood's most respected actors, also went through a mysterious hair loss phase. After some specific roles, he reportedly shed almost all his hair for an extended period, deeply concerning fans. The cause of this condition was speculated to be either medication side effects, extreme stress during filming, or an underlying thyroid condition. Although the exact cause remains a mystery, his hair did not fully grow back as before, leading him to wear wigs in some subsequent films to maintain his image. Tom Hanks's story is a reminder of the fragility of health and how even the greatest cinematic icons are not immune to unforeseen physical transformations, sometimes entirely beyond their control. Silent pain. Yet behind those disastrous hair transplant stories, another tragedy often goes unnoticed: the profound psychological torment they inflicted upon the stars' lives. Many of them fell into a spiral of appearance obsession, constantly undergoing countless surgeries merely to try and correct the initial mistakes. Ironically, these faulty hair transplants made them even more self-conscious than when they were naturally bald. They were forced to depend on elaborate styling techniques, special lighting, and subtle camera angles to conceal their artificial hair. Some stars even developed body dysmorphic disorder, a condition that psychologists today have identified. They became obsessed with perceived flaws in their appearance despite corrective surgeries, only worsening the problem. The relentless anxiety about their hair gnawed away at their personal relationships and severely impacted their careers. Many actors became reclusive or developed elaborate habits to conceal their hair issues, self-imposing limitations on their social interactions and professional opportunities. The industry of concealing secrets. The blatant failures of those early hair transplant procedures inadvertently gave birth to an entirely new industry, dedicated specifically to concealing the hair issues of celebrities. Professional makeup artists, masterful hairstylists, and even lighting technicians became experts at disguising disastrous hair transplants. Major film studios began hiring specialists whose sole job was to ensure actors' hair looked as natural as possible on screen. These highly skilled artisans developed a myriad of unique techniques, from using cosmetics to hide scalp scars and styling hair, to make implanted patches appear natural, to setting up specific lighting to minimize the conspicuousness of the hair grafts. This concealment industry also included specialized photographers who understood how to choose angles and adjust lighting to subtly hide every hair imperfection. Some photographers became legendary in Hollywood for their ability to transform dreadful transplanted hair into natural beauty in promotional photos. Valuable lessons from tragedies. Ironically, the very disasters that stars endured became an enormous driving force, making a significant contribution to the development of current hair restoration techniques. From the blatant failures of the punch graft method, surgeons learned painful lessons and began researching and developing more sophisticated methods that yield far more natural results. The painful experiences of these first famous patients helped the hair restoration industry realize the importance of an artistic eye in surgery. Doctors became aware that to create a natural and harmonious hairline, it required not only surgical skill but also a deep understanding of facial proportions, hair growth patterns, and the human aging process. The psychological issues many stars faced also spurred improvements in patient consultation, helping them form more realistic expectations about hair restoration procedures. Today's modern hair transplant surgeons dedicate considerable time to discussing the limitations of procedures and helping patients clearly understand the realistic outcomes they can achieve. So there you have it, 35 celebrities whose true colors shocked the world and destroyed their squeaky clean images. Fame may bring fortune, but it doesn't guarantee character. Did any names surprise you? Let us know in the comments. If you love discovering Hollywood's untold truths, smash that like button, subscribe to Iconic Inside, and turn on notifications so you never miss another jaw-dropping reveal.